Okay, almost every day in my Twitch stream, people are asking me about team positioning and how to set up the team correctly. And so we're going to talk about cleave attacks and chains and where to place your tanks and so on. And towards the end of the video, I'm going to go over my entire roster and my save squads. And my save squads is primarily used for Blitz, but actually Alliance War. And we'll just go over that. And I just want to say that this is somewhat of a subjective thing. It's not rocket surgery. There's a lot of conflicting opinions on this. So I'm going to give you what my opinions and my thoughts on correct team placement. Now, before we get into the cleave attack, like this is Quake's basic attack, I just want to talk about how the board is set up in Marvel Strike Force. And we're going to go to our high-tech pen and paper right here. I'm going to draw it. I've got a webcam attached right here. And we're just going to do it. Now, I'm just going to draw a line down the middle. And I'm going to say that this is our side right here, and this is our opponent's side, right? And you start off typically in a player versus player, in a 1 versus 1, or in an arena without any summons, 5 versus 5. Now, I just want to say that there's a total of 10 slots available, so it could be, in theory, 10 versus 10. The game is set up to do a full 10 versus 10, but it can't be more than 10. So we'll talk about the initial 5. The initial 5 are pretty much set up like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not that those numbers mean anything. Same thing on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when we have an attack like this right here, it says attack primary target and adjacent targets for 125% damage. Apply slow to primary target and adjacent targets for 2 turns. What that means is if I target the middle person, it'll hit 2 and 4. If I target number 4, it'll hit 3 and 5. These are all basically the adjacent targets to 4 are going to be 3 and 5 now. So this creates a situation where 1 only has 1 adjacent target. So if you target the ends, it'll only hit 1. So you're only hitting 2 targets instead of potentially 3. And so the idea then is if we have taunting tanks like Drax, put Drax on the end because then it's only hitting 2 targets instead of 3 targets, this particular type of attack, right? Makes sense. And so let's go a little bit further on the board because sometimes there's summon. Like if you have a character that summons minions like Ultron, for example. Well, there's a total of 10 slots. And I'm just going to do what Valley Flying did. A, B, C, D, and E. So there's a total of 5 on the front row, 5 on the back row for a total of 10. And that's important because if you're using a character like Minerva and she has a revive and you're playing her with Ultron, you can only revive up to 10. You can't revive 11th one and it's completely wasted. It happens all the time when you're playing Ultron with Minerva. So situation is the same thing. If there's minions on the board and your opponent does this cleave attack, like with Quake, the end targets only have so many edges. So like 1 and A right here basically are only adjacent to B and 2. But if I target D and 4, it's going to hit 3 and C and 5 and E. So all of these are adjacent. Like if we're going to say if we target D, if with this attack, it'll hit 3, it'll hit C, it'll hit 4, it'll hit E, and it'll D. So that being known, it becomes very important where you place your tanks. And the idea is typically you want to put your tanks on the end. And there's a lot of exceptions to that, but typically you want to put your tanks on the first slot or the 5th slot. Really, they're the same thing. And then the idea is in the 2nd slot or the 4th slot to put some kind of character that has counterattack or dodge or stealth because of the chain mechanic. Now let's talk about the chain mechanic. There's a couple different types of chain in the game, and we're going to primarily talk about the type of chain that appears on Daredevil on his ultimate ability Brawl, where it says attack primary target, chain up to 3 to 4 adjacent targets for 240% damage. And it says 3 to 4. That means half the time it'll do 3, and the other half the time it'll do 4. Counterattack breaks this chain. So if there's nobody taunting on the field, what's going to happen is if there's nobody taunting and you target 3, half the time the chain will go to 4 and then to 5, and the other half of the time it'll go to 2 and to 1. So typically, most of the time, you want to target the end and let it chain a bunch. And that's typically where the tanks are taunting, or either the 1 or the 5. And so what the typical thing to do is to put in this, see right here, counterattack breaks this chain. Typically what to do is to put a counterattacker in the 2 spot or the 4 spot. Or a character that has stealth, because it won't chain through stealth. So I just want to say, in general, the most basic strategy in this game right here is to put a taunting tank in 1 or 5, and then in 2 or 4, put a character that has counterattack and or evasion, or a character that has stealth. Now, the evasion doesn't break this particular chain, but other types of chain it does, like the throw baton has one. A dodge breaks this chain. Every counter is a little bit different. So just be mindful of that. Now, I want to go, and I'm going to just show you my entire roster and my team position for every save squad that I have. And this is highly subjective. Everybody has different thoughts on this, frankly. And these are my thoughts, and some of them are specific to certain matchups. So, but I think I've got a good idea of what to do and how I like to have it done. And we're going to just start all the way at the top of my roster. We're going to work down. Okay, so what this is right here, this is my Asgardian lineup. And Sif is a tank. She can taunt, so she's on the end. And the idea here is that the number one target that the opposing enemy is going to attack is Thor. So I've got Thor on the opposite side. And then usually the second target is Hela. And so I've got Hela as far away as Thor as possible. That was my logic. Pretty much Loki, Heimdall, or Hela could have put him in different slots. That's fine. But the main idea is that we've got our taunting tank on the end and we've got Thor on the opposite. Now, this particular team right here is a little bit different. We have 2 taunting tanks. We have Captain America and we have Hulk. And normally what we would do is put Captain America, Black Widow, and maybe Hulk on the other end. But there's a special mechanic with Shield Trooper that whenever one of his adjacent allies is attacked, he counterattacks. And so the idea there is that Hulk will be taunting, Captain America will be taunting, and when they're receiving damage, the Shield Trooper will be attacking back. That is the idea. Black Widow goes under stealth, so if Hulk is ever attacked by a chain, it will not go towards Black Widow. It'll go the other way, and that's fine. And then Captain Marvel's on the end. I'm not sure if the placement matters between those two. The idea here is that we're getting the most out of the Shield Trooper being in between the 2 tanks. Here, there's no taunting tanks. All I know is that I want Crystal to survive. She seems to be the most important for me to have survived, so I put her on the end. Now, this right here, got to thank Reminex. This is some next level high IQ stuff right here. All right, Phoenix goes into stealth. And when she goes into stealth, the only way that any of the attacks can go or chain is into Colossus. And he has counterattack and he'll break chains. There's probably 2 ways of setting up this team. You could do Phoenix on the end and Colossus here in the second spot. For the longest time, I had that on opposite ends. I had Phoenix over here and Colossus other end. And this is kind of a little bit different of a setup right here because I do want my Phoenix to die. And if both of them are taunting at the same time and they're side by side, there's more potential for Phoenix to die, which is what you want to do in this particular setup. Not a lot of strategy here on this team right here because there's no taunting tanks, but rather my 2 priority targets are Rescue and Falcon, so I have them opposite of each other. This right here is a very specific lineup, and it has to do with the energy that Thanos gives out to adjacent cosmic heroes. I want that energy to go to Minerva and Rocket. They're both cosmic. And then Star-Lord gives energy to adjacent allies as well. And in this particular build, we're funneling all of it to Rocket. Now, if we were going into Dark Dimension 2, we would want to flip all of that and send that to Minerva, because Minerva is all about Dark Dimension 2. But in U6 raids, or maybe if I'm playing up against like Hydra, Red Skull, I definitely want all the energy going towards Rocket so that he can AoE. So not only is the energy coming from Thanos, it's also coming from Star-Lord. And because Star-Lord's on the end, it's all going one way into Rocket. Like I said, in Dark Dimension 2, you'd want Minerva and Rocket reversed. Now, this is the new Brotherhood, and I think there's two ways of doing this. We've got a taunting tank right here, and then Blob is also a taunting tank. Now, Blob also has an ability where he gives deflect to adjacent allies. So he, in this particular position right here, Blob will be getting deflect to Juggernaut and Toad, which is very good. And we're protecting Toad a little bit. Now, Toad also has a high dodge chance, and so that kind of messes up the chains. And I put Pyro as far away as possible from the taunting tanks so that he could survive. I've also ran this Juggernaut, Toad, Blob, Pyro, Magneto, and the idea is to put Blob in the middle and the deflects go to Pyro and Toad. I like this as well. Okay, next right here we have Shield Coulson, and the idea right here is the taunting tank is Shield Security, and the highest value target is Shield Medic, and she's as far away as possible from there, because the kill order typically is Medic then Coulson. So I've got Coulson as far away from Medic as possible. This right here, I'm treating Invisible Woman as my taunting tank. And so I've got her on the end, opposite of Thing. But most of the time when she does her stealth mechanic and she leaves herself out of stealth because she's got the highest health, and she's pretty much my taunter. All right, then right here we've got Wakandans. And the idea here is that M'Baku has the taunt. Killmonger has a counterattack to stop the chain. Plus, he has self-heal. So if he does get any splash damage from M'Baku, he'll be able to heal himself up. And then we've got Shuri in the middle. You know, if there's a chain that goes this way, she has high armor, and we're kind of protecting our weakest target over here, Black Panther. This particular build right here is Aimtron. The whole thing on this team is that we want our Scientist Supreme as far away as our taunting tank is over here. And then also right here, this particular character right here gives speed to his adjacent allies. So we're going to funnel that into Scientist Supreme and Gavatron. And then we've got our taunting tank right here. And that's okay if Ultron dies because he has a revive. Same thing right here, taunting tank on the end, and then we've got Spider-Man right there because he has a high dodge chance. Now, we're getting way more picky right here. Luke Cage, taunting tank. We've got Daredevil right here because he can dodge. He also can give the whole team counterattack. But the number one target on the team is typically Punisher. And the idea by putting Punisher next to Daredevil is if Daredevil's attacked, Punisher will retaliate. So putting them next to each other just seems like a smart thing to do. This is a catch-all team. Go figure. Again, taunting take on the end. Wasp is high evasion, dodge a chance, so she's adjacent to them, and then it's just whatever. Right here, Drax on the end. Taunting tank on the end. And like I said, that could be on either end. It could be there or there, but we have it right there. And then Miles has stealth. Fine. This right here is a very specific build. If I ever go up against Coulson in war, he's going to attack my character with the highest attack, which is going to be my Scarlet Witch. And the idea there is that we'll create a hole. Let's say she dies turn 1. And then if they decide to go after Ghost Rider next, there will be a gap and the chain will break, because the chain will break if there's a gap in players as well. So like if this character is dead or is under evasion and they attack this one right here, it won't chain. It'll be broken right here if the character's dead. And so that's the kind of the idea there of putting Scarlet Witch there. She's my highest highest attack character. And then if that becomes Elsa, I'll move Elsa next to there. Right here, we've got Strife being the taunting take. And then we got Mystique, who quite often has stealth. And then we've got them separated away from my Mr. Sinister on the other side. Right here, not a lot of thought went into this, to be honest. The idea, normally you put your taunting tanks on the ends, but when he goes into taunt, he can remove one negative status effect from adjacent allies. And so I decided to put him on the second slot. So if Shocker or Green Goblin, I guess I could have put Vulture there. I think Vulture's probably a more priority over Green Goblin. I don't think it matters too much, but if he does taunt, then he would clear the negative status effects away from his adjacent allies. Right here at the very end, I've got my taunting tank right here. This guy right here is the Rifle Trooper. When he dies and he revives because of the mechanics with Red Skull, he does an AoE. I actually don't mind if he dies, so I could put him right next to the taunting take. This guy gets stealth. And then Red Skull is immune to damage, and I just thought it'd be kind of annoying to put him in somewhere in the middle rather than on the end, because I know when I've played up against Red Skull, he doesn't take any damage, so it's kind of a wasted attack if it chains through Red Skull or if there's splash damage on Red Skull. So I hope this makes sense. I hope I don't really know how to explain these things sometimes, and I hope my little chicken scratches make sense about how there's 10 slots on the board. These are the main slots right here in this W pattern. And then the A, B, C, D, E are pretty much just for summons and minions. But the AI often will have 10 slots. And or just a reminder, if you have 10 characters out in the field, 10 bots, let's say Ultron bots, Minerva and Scientist Supreme are not going to revive the 11th. And character like Minerva, she revives the first one to die. So there you go. Any other types of videos you want me to make like this, put it down in the comment section. Let me know if this is helpful by leaving a like. And as always, thanks for watching and keep on gaming.